You know, when you walk into a museum, you see these beautiful artifacts, and they tell a story, right? A story about history, about culture. But sometimes there's another story hiding in plain sight, a much darker one, written in blood and paid for with the profits of crime. Today we're prying open that secret economy.
See, that incredible ancient statue you're looking at, it's not just a piece of history, it's a commodity. And like any other commodity, it can be bought and sold. The difference is, in this market, the currency isn't just money, it's violence. It's a key asset in the multi-billion-dollar business of global terror.
And that's the absolute gut punch of this whole thing. Every dollar that changes hands for a stolen artifact, it becomes a link in a chain. A financial chain that can lead straight to funding conflict, to funding terror attacks. It's a direct pipeline from our ancient past to very modern violence.
To really get what's going on, we have to look back. Because look, this isn't some new problem. For more than 100 years, the absolute chaos of war has been the perfect cover for turning cultural treasures into cold, hard cash for weapons. It's a battle-tested model for funding a fight.
That term, blood antiquities, yeah, it's meant to be stark. It's just like blood diamonds. It's designed to force you to see the line connecting a beautiful object with the brutal violence it pays for. The business model is cruelly simple. You monetize the past to finance the destruction of the future.
The scale of this is just staggering. For a group like ISIS, this was never a side hustle. No, this was a core part of their business plan. Intelligence reports showed that antiquities were their #2 source of income, right behind oil. We're talking an estimated $100 million a year. That's not just pocket change. That's enough money to pay salaries for thousands of fighters and buy a serious arsenal. And that $100 million, that's probably on the low end, because this is a black market. The real numbers are incredibly hard to pin down. Some of the broader estimates for the entire illicit trade range anywhere from $200 million all the way up to $8 billion a year. It is a massive, unregulated, and unbelievably profitable shadow economy. And this isn't just one group or one war. It's a playbook that's been used again and again all over the world. Back in 1922, the Soviets sold off stolen religious treasures to buy weapons from Germany. In the 70s, the Khmer Rouge funded their genocide by looting on an industrial scale. And just before the 9/11 attacks, one of the hijackers was selling stolen ceramics from Afghanistan to help pay for the operation. The tactic never really changes, just the names.
Okay, so how does this actually work? What does this supply chain look like? How does an ancient artifact get from a hole in the ground in a war zone to a fancy showroom with the profits ending up back in the hands of a terrorist group? Well, it's a process that's just as sophisticated as any legitimate global business. It all starts with organized looting in war-torn regions, where the chaos is the perfect cover. From there, the items are smuggled across borders that are barely controlled, often into transit hubs like Turkey or Lebanon. And that's where the laundering process kicks in. They start creating fake histories for these objects. Once an item is clean, it gets sold in the major art markets. Think New York, London, or the Gulf. And then finally, the money gets wired back to the conflict zone, and the whole cycle starts over. Now, a really critical part of this whole system is something called a free port. Think of them like super secure, tax-free vaults, usually right next to international airports. They were originally designed for legitimate, super-rich collectors to store art without paying taxes. But their intense secrecy and lack of oversight have made them a perfect place for criminals to hide stolen goods, sometimes for years, completely anonymously until the heat dies down. And here's the other genius part of the scam: laundering the history itself. You see, traffickers don't just move the object, they create a whole new story for it. They forge documents, a fake ownership history called a provenance, to make a freshly looted artifact look like it's been in some old family collection for generations. A single piece of fake paper can turn a war crime into a blue-chip investment. All right, so that's how the stuff gets out. But for this whole scheme to work, someone's got to be buying it, right? And that demand, well, it thrives in the world's biggest art markets, where legal loopholes and a culture of, let's say, not asking too many questions allows it all to happen.
The single most important word in this entire business is provenance. That's the documented history of an object. A legit piece has a clear paper trail. A bloody antiquity, it's either got a fake one or nothing at all. And here's the really shocking part. Experts estimate that the vast majority of ancient artifacts on the market right now have no verifiable provenance. The whole market is basically a minefield.
Now, this is a major weakness that traffickers love to exploit. In many countries, there's a legal concept called the good faith purchaser rule. Basically, if a buyer gets a stolen item but claims they didn't know it was looted, they can often just keep it. This creates a really twisted financial incentive for collectors and even museums to practice willful blindness. It makes don't ask, don't tell a very profitable business strategy.
And you can literally watch the market react to this stuff in real time. Just look at these sales numbers from Sotheby's. During the chaos of the Arab Spring in 2010, when looting in Egypt was surging, the auction house sales of Egyptian antiquities shot up fourfold. They went from $3 million to over $13 million in 1 year. For investigators, seeing a correlation like that, chaos on the ground, profits in the showroom, that's a huge red flag.
So let's put all the pieces together, because this isn't just about money or art crime. We're talking about directly bankrolling terrorism and, at the same time, permanently destroying our shared human history.
I know we've said it before, but it's so important to grasp this. This trade was not some minor side hustle for ISIS. It was a central pillar of their entire financial empire. They literally built a war chest by liquidating thousands of years of human civilization.
And this is where it stops being a financial story and becomes about real-world horror. When French and Belgian police were investigating the 2016 Brussels terror attacks, they uncovered a direct link. One of the suicide bombers, Khalid el-Bakraoui, was using the illicit antiquities trade to fund his operations. The line from a looted artifact to a bomb exploding in a European subway station was suddenly, terrifyingly clear.
You see, it's a two-pronged attack. The looting serves two purposes. First, it's a huge source of cash to fund more attacks. But second, when they destroy places like the ancient city of Palmyra or the tombs in Timbuktu, it's an ideological attack. It's a calculated strategy to literally erase history, to erase culture, to erase any identity that doesn't fit their narrow worldview.
Okay, so the problem is massive. It's global. It's terrifying. But people are fighting back. A coordinated counterattack is finally underway. From law enforcement to international diplomacy, the world is starting to treat this for what it is, a serious transnational crime.
And one of the biggest players in this fight is, believe it or not, coming out of the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. They have a special antiquities trafficking unit, a team of prosecutors and investigators who have been aggressively going after this trade. They've recovered thousands of priceless artifacts and put some really high-level traffickers behind bars. They are systematically taking these networks apart and sending stolen history back where it belongs.
And on the legal side of things, we've got a real game changer, the Nicosia Convention. For the very first time, there's an international treaty that specifically makes trafficking cultural property a crime. This is so important because traffickers have always exploited the differences in laws from one country to another. By getting everyone on the same page, the convention aims to close those loopholes for good.
You can almost see the world waking up to this problem over the last couple of decades. The looting of Iraq's National Museum back in 2003 was a huge wake-up call for everybody. By 2012, the International Criminal Court was actually prosecuting the destruction of cultural sites as a war crime. And now, with legal tools like the Nicosia Convention and tactical teams like the ATU, the fight is becoming much more proactive and way more effective.
And that brings us back to today, right now. While law enforcement is going after the supply chain, thousands of these blood antiquities are already out there, hanging in museums, sitting in private homes. So the responsibility is shifting. It's moving from the battlefield to the boardroom and, honestly, to us. What is the duty of our cultural institutions to make sure the art on their walls isn't actually evidence of a crime? And how do we, all of us, make sure that the history we claim to love isn't stained with blood?
So while markets rise and fall, systems like this quietly move billions behind the scenes, hidden from the public, hidden from scrutiny, and sometimes hidden from the law itself. Because in global finance, the most powerful forces are rarely the most visible. And this is just one of the systems used by the unseen elite.